Alien girl shields human during a plasma strike, but human finds the blast shaped like her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The first thing Ethan Cole remembered was the sharp, metallic taste of charged air as the plasma alarms wailed through the fractured corridor. His visor flickered under the harsh glow of emergency lights, numbers dancing across the HUD like a heartbeat out of rhythm. He pushed forward, boots scraping over scorched flooring still warm beneath his weight. He'd been separated from his unit only minutes earlier, though the silence pressing in on him made it feel much longer. The plasma storm outside shook the steel frame of the outpost, rattling dust loose from the ceiling panels in small, steady cascades. Ethan raised his rifle out of instinct, even though he knew it wouldn't do much against what was coming. The vibration in the floor deepened. A plasma strike was inbound. Close, too close. His comm sputtered with static, then died entirely. He took one step toward the nearest support beam, hoping for even a sliver of cover. But before he reached it, a blur of turquoise moved into his peripheral vision. Kira Thal. Her armor was dinted, dusted with ash, her breathing quick but steady. Without a word, she closed the distance between them. Ethan barely had time to register the look in her golden eyes. Unwavering focus. A kind of calm that felt impossible in a moment like this. The charging hum outside spiked. She reacted first. Her hand gripped his shoulder, pushing him down with surprising strength as she activated the shimmering arc of her energy shield. The world lit up in a flood of white-blue light. Heat swept through the corridor, harmless behind her barrier, but bright enough to wash out his visor for a full second. When the shockwave finally passed, and Ethan blinked his vision clear, he realized Kira was no longer in front of him. She had been thrown back several feet, though she was still conscious, braced on one knee. Ethan exhaled shakily and pushed himself upright. The air smelled faintly of ionized metal. When he looked toward the wall where the plasma had hit, he froze. Burn marks fanned across the steel panels, soot spreading in soft gradients. But right at the center was a clean-edged silhouette, shaped unmistakably like her. Shoulders angled forward. One arm raised. The outline of her stance as she shielded him. It was as if the blast itself had captured her act in a single moment. Ethan stared, unable to look away. Kira, he murmured, turning toward her. She stood with effort, brushing debris from her armor. For a breath, her expression flickered, something between curiosity and quiet understanding. We should move, she said, steadying herself. The next wave will hit harder. But Ethan hesitated, his gaze drawn back to the scorched silhouette on the wall, its edges glowing faintly in the dim corridor light. It felt like a message carved into steel by the universe itself, a reminder of what she had done for him, of how close he had come to disappearing in the flash of that strike. When he finally stepped toward her, something had shifted inside him, quiet but undeniable. And though Kira didn't speak of it, he noticed the way her eyes lingered on him for a fraction longer, as if she felt it too. Ethan moved carefully through the dim corridor, the air still humming with leftover static from the earlier blast. His helmet lights cast narrow beams across bent support struts and drifting dust, each particle glittering briefly before fading back into shadow. Kira walked a few steps ahead, her posture steady despite the impact she had taken. The soft glow from her armor's status strips pulsed in a slow, deliberate rhythm that reassured him she was still functioning. They had only gone a short distance when a deep tremor rolled through the floor, a reminder that the outer structure of the outpost was still struggling against the plasma storm outside. Ethan steadied himself against a wall panel, feeling the warmth of metal that had recently endured a direct hit. His eyes flicked toward the silhouette burned into the steel, still faintly visible from where they stood. Kira followed his gaze for a brief moment before looking forward again, her voice calm. Focus on the path ahead, Ethan. The storm will not wait for us. He fell into step beside her, adjusting the power settings on his exosuit to conserve energy. I know, he said, though the shape on the wall still tugged at his thoughts. I just did not expect the plasma to leave something like that behind. Kira's golden eyes softened slightly as she examined the readings on her wrist display. Plasma reacts strangely with steel that has been reinforced with certain alloys. The pattern is incidental. Ethan raised an eyebrow inside his visor. That looked a lot less than incidental. She did not respond immediately. Instead, she paused at a junction where two hallways met, scanning both directions with a quiet focus that made the air feel still. "Your equipment is low on power," she said finally. "If we are to make it out, we must take the lower access route. It will keep us closer to the inner support beams." Ethan did not argue. She clearly knew this structure better than he did. Together, they moved into the narrow maintenance hall, where the scent of overheated wiring drifted through the vents. The ceiling was low enough that Ethan had to duck beneath certain pipes, and Kira's shoulder brushed one gently, sending a soft metallic ring through the passage. As they turned another corner, Ethan caught his breath at a sight ahead. The floor dipped slightly, revealing a broad section of hallway where the ceiling had partially collapsed earlier. Light filtered through the cracked panels above, casting long beams that cut through the haze. Kira studied the collapse carefully, then crouched to examine the edge of a buckled support frame. "The structure is holding for now," she said. "But you must cross one at a time to avoid additional strain." Ethan felt the faint vibration of the storm echo through the floor again. "You first," he said. She shook her head. "Your suit is heavier. You should go." He wanted to argue, but her steady gaze left little room for debate. He stepped forward slowly, testing each placement of his boots. The surface groaned softly, but held. When he reached solid footing again, Kira followed, moving with a calm grace that made the fragile metal seem more cooperative under her steps. When she reached him, Ethan exhaled in relief. "I owe you twice now," he said lightly. She tilted her head, the faintest hint of amusement in her expression. "You owe me nothing. Survival is a shared endeavor." The lights flickered above them, signaling another change in power flow. Kira looked down the final stretch of hallway. "The command stairwell is just ahead," she said. "If it is intact, we will have a clear path to the inner shelter." Ethan nodded and took one more glance behind them. The silhouette on the wall had disappeared into the shadows, but the memory of it remained sharp and vivid. As they continued forward, he felt a quiet shift inside himself, a sense that the world had briefly stepped aside to show him something important, even if he did not yet understand the meaning. Kira walked beside him, silent but steady, her presence a calm force guiding him through the lingering haze. Ethan and Kira reached the base of the command stairwell, only to find the access door lodged halfway open, its frame warped from the earlier tremors. A soft breeze drifted through the gap, carrying the faint scent of overheated circuits and sterilized air from deeper inside the outpost. Ethan crouched to inspect the bent metal, running a gloved hand along the warm edge. The door groaned slightly as he pressed against it. "It will shift if I put more weight on it," he said quietly. Kira stepped beside him, her scanners emitting a soft pulse as she examined the hinges. "The mechanism is compromised, but not beyond use," she replied. "If we apply pressure together, we may be able to widen the gap enough to slip through." Ethan nodded. They positioned themselves on either side of the door, feeling the metal vibrate faintly from the storm above. On a shared count, they pressed inward. The door resisted at first, then gave a reluctant inch, then another. The gap widened just enough for Kira to angle her slender frame through. She stepped into the dim stairwell, her boots tapping lightly against the metal steps as she scanned upward. "It is stable," she said. "Your turn." Ethan inhaled and followed, squeezing past the bent frame. His shoulder brushed the damaged edge, sending a brief spark of static across his suit, but he managed to slip inside. The stairwell was narrow, lit only by emergency strips glowing along the handrail. Each light flickered at irregular intervals, as if unsure whether to hold or fail. Ethan gripped the rail and began climbing. Matching his pace with Kira's, the air grew cooler as they ascended, the storm's rumble fading behind thick, reinforced walls. Halfway up, Kira paused, tilting her head. Her golden eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Ethan froze beside her. "What is it?" She held up a hand for silence. A faint sound echoed above them, a rhythmic tone, gentle and steady. Ethan recognized it after a moment. "A beacon," he whispered. "Someone activated a locator beacon." Kira nodded. "It is set to a low range. likely triggered manually from close proximity. Ethan felt a subtle shift in his chest, a quiet spark of hope. Someone is alive up there, he said. They continued climbing, moving with careful steps to avoid unnecessary noise. When they reached the landing, Kira eased the door open with deliberate control. It slid just enough to reveal a corridor lined with reinforced panels. Light pooled from ceiling fixtures that had survived the storm's earlier surges. The locator beacon rested against the wall, a small device shaped like a silver cylinder, its soft pulses forming a steady rhythm. The source of those pulses, however, was nowhere in sight. Ethan knelt beside the beacon, checking its display. This was activated recently, he said. Maybe a few minutes before the storm's last surge. Kira's gaze traveled down the hallway. The person who triggered it may have moved on, she said. But they could still be within this sector. A faint hum suddenly shifted in tone overhead, indicating the storm had intensified. The ceiling panels vibrated in response, dust shaking loose in delicate patterns. Kira looked up briefly, then back to Ethan. We must move before the next surge affects this level, she said. Ethan stood and secured the beacon on his belt. Lead the way. They walked side by side, listening to the gentle pulse of the beacon echoing against the metallic walls. The corridor curved slightly to the right, leading to a series of reinforced doors, each marked with identification numbers. As they moved, Ethan noticed subtle signs, footprints in dust, a handprint near a control pad, a discarded tool lying near the wall. Someone had passed through recently, moving quickly but not carelessly. Kira examined the footprints with sharp focus. Single individual, she murmured. Human-sized, based on the stride. Ethan looked ahead as the corridor opened into a wider chamber. Somewhere in this maze of steel and flickering lights, someone else was navigating the chaos, leaving a trail just clear enough to follow. He felt the hum of his suit's power core behind him and adjusted the settings, conserving what charge he could. Kira glanced at him, reading the concern beneath the motion. We will find them, she said softly. Her calm steadied him more than she seemed to realize. As they moved deeper into the chamber, Ethan could not shake the feeling that the silhouette burned into the wall behind them had begun something neither of them fully understood. And now, with the storm pressing closer and a lone survivor somewhere ahead, their path was pulling them further into the heart of whatever that moment had set in motion. Ethan and Kira stepped into the wide chamber, their footsteps echoing softly across the smooth floor. The emergency lighting cast a pale glow over the room, revealing scattered equipment crates and overturned diagnostic stations. A soft hum drifted through the air, coming from the row of consoles along the left wall. Kira approached them with careful steps, her fingers hovering just above each console as she studied the displays. Power flow is inconsistent, she said. The storm is causing interference through the upper levels. Ethan scanned the room, noting the faint footprints in the dust curving toward a secondary hallway on the far side. Our survivor passed through here, he said. These prints are still sharp. His visor highlighted the subtle depressions, confirming his assumption. Kira's gaze followed the trail. We should proceed before the next surge affects this sector. Before they moved, a faint chime echoed through the chamber, soft but unmistakable. It came from a small device on one of the central tables, its screen flashing gently. Ethan picked it up carefully. This is a personal log recorder, he said. Someone must have set it here on purpose. Kira examined the glowing symbol on the recorder. This mark indicates distress, she murmured. Whoever placed it intended to guide anyone searching. Ethan placed the recorder back on the table and turned toward the hallway. Then they want to be found. They followed the trail into the narrower passage, where the air felt cooler and the lights flickered with a rhythmic pulse. The corridor walls were lined with storage cabinets and sealed compartments, each labeled with precise markings. Ethan brushed a hand across one of the panels, feeling its faint warmth. This section must have auxiliary power, he observed. At least for now. Kira nodded. The inner infrastructure is more resilient. They moved deeper into the passage until the footprints suddenly stopped near a recessed alcove. Ethan crouched, examining the floor. They paused here, he said, then stepped over there. He pointed toward a vented panel at the base of the wall. The panel was slightly ajar. Kira lowered herself to inspect it. This is an access point to the lower circulation tunnels, she said. It would provide protection from the storm's interference. Ethan leaned closer. Could they have gone down there? Kira pressed a hand against the panel, testing its movement. It is possible. Many personnel use these tunnels during system failures. She looked at Ethan, her expression steady. If they went inside, we will need to follow. Ethan took a slow breath and nodded. All right, let us open it carefully. Together they eased the panel aside, revealing a dark tunnel just large enough for them to crawl through. Cool air drifted out, carrying the scent of recycled oxygen. Kira activated a wrist light, casting a gentle beam into the narrow passage. The tunnel stretched forward for several yards before angling downward. Ethan adjusted the light on his visor and looked at her. After you. She gave a small nod and moved into the tunnel with a smooth, practiced motion. Ethan followed, closing the panel behind them. The walls of the tunnel were lined with insulated tubing and narrow conduits, each bearing slight vibrations from the outpost's power grid. As they crawled forward, Ethan listened to the steady sound of Kira's movements ahead of him, the tunnel amplifying each quiet hand placement against the metal floor. After several yards, the tunnel widened into a small maintenance hub, just tall enough for them to stand upright. A soft glow radiated from an emergency light overhead, casting gentle shadows along the curved walls. Kira scanned the floor, her golden eyes focused. There, she said softly. Ethan looked where she pointed. A hand-scrawled mark had been drawn on the wall using a piece of broken paneling. It was a simple arrow, pointing toward a deeper tunnel on the right. Whoever they were following had left it for them. Ethan felt a shift in his chest, a renewed sense of direction. They want us to keep going, he said. Kira met his gaze, her calm steadying him once again. Then we will follow. With the storm rumbling faintly above and the air carrying the soft hum of distant machinery, they stepped into the next tunnel, guided by a survivor who trusted that someone would come. Ethan and Kira followed the narrow tunnel until it opened into a larger maintenance chamber, a quiet pocket beneath the storm where the hum of stabilizers blended with the soft pulse of emergency lights. Thin streams of recycled air drifted through ceiling vents, carrying a coolness that eased the heat lingering from the upper levels. Ethan stepped forward, his visor adjusting automatically to the chamber's dim glow. The hand-drawn arrow they had been following pointed toward a cluster of equipment cases stacked near the far wall. Kira moved ahead with careful steps, her wrist light sweeping across the floor. These cases were moved recently, she said. The dust patterns are disturbed. Ethan joined her, noticing faint impressions in the thin layer of dust near the cases. Footprints again, he murmured. Lighter than before. Whoever we are following may have been tired. Kira's gaze lingered on the prints. Or conserving energy, she said softly. It is common for personnel to slow their pace after long exposure to stress. Ethan scanned the chamber, taking in the subtle details. A water canister rested beside one of the cases, still half full. A diagnostic pad lay nearby, its screen dim but not entirely powered down. Someone had been here not long ago. They stopped to rest, Ethan said. They must be close. Kira examined the diagnostic pad, brushing her fingers lightly across its surface. The screen flickered, stabilizing long enough to display a faint message. Guidance, she read aloud. Ethan leaned over her shoulder. The word had been typed with deliberate care, followed by an arrow symbol pointing toward a secondary tunnel on the left side of the chamber. Kira placed the pad back where she found it. They are leaving signals for us, she said. Ethan nodded, his voice quiet. Which means they believe someone is coming to help. Kira looked at him, her golden eyes steady. Then we must not let them down. They approached the left side tunnel, where a soft vibration ran through the floor. The outpost above them groaned under the weight of another storm surge, accompanied by a distant shift in the metal structure. Ethan felt the tremor. In his boots. This sector may not hold if the storm intensifies, he said. Kira lifted her wrist display, studying the oscillating energy readings. The surge is passing for now. We have time, but not much. They entered the next tunnel, narrower but taller, allowing them to walk upright. The walls curved inward slightly, giving the passage a sense of compressed space. Their lights glided across pipes and conduits that buzzed gently with low power. As they moved deeper, a soft tapping sound echoed faintly through the tunnel. Ethan slowed his pace, listening carefully. Do you hear that? Kira lifted her hand, signaling for silence. The tapping continued, rhythmic and deliberate, as if someone were striking metal with controlled precision. Not loud, but intentional. Kira leaned in slightly, her expression sharpening with focus. A signal, she whispered. Manual. Someone is alerting us. Ethan felt a ripple of relief wash through him. Then they are alive. They moved toward the sound, following its steady rhythm. The tapping grew gradually clearer, guiding them like a beacon. The tunnel curved sharply, leading to a wider junction where several smaller passages branched off. At the far end, behind a partially open service hatch, a dim light flickered. There, Ethan said. Kira approached the hatch with controlled caution. She knelt and gently pushed it open another inch. Inside, a faint silhouette retreated slightly, startled by the motion. Ethan switched off his visor light and spoke softly. It is all right. We are here to help. A small pause followed, then a voice answered, quiet but hopeful. I thought no one got my message. Kira exchanged a quick look with Ethan, her calm expression warming just enough to convey quiet reassurance. We received it, she said. And we came. The figures shifted closer to the light, their outline becoming clearer in the narrow space beyond the hatch. Ethan felt the tension ease from his shoulders. They had found the survivor. But the storm above was growing stronger, and the walls around them vibrated again, reminding him that getting here was only the first step. Now they had to find a way out together. Ethan watched as the figure behind the hatch hesitated, then finally stepped forward into the soft glow of Kira's wrist light. The survivor was a young technician, human, with dust streaked across his uniform and a portable power cell strapped to his chest. His breathing was shallow, but steady enough to show he had held on longer than most could in this section of the outpost. My name is Noah Turner, he said quietly. I thought the storm took everyone. Ethan offered a reassuring nod. We are still here, he said, and we are getting out. Noah managed a tired smile. I kept the beacon running as long as the power cell would allow. I hoped someone might pick it up. Kira stepped closer, her calm presence steadying the air around them. You left clear signals, she said. They guided us here efficiently. Noah's shoulders relaxed at her words, and he motioned toward the hatch behind him. The circulation tunnel I came through collapsed behind me. I could not go back. I have been waiting for the storm to ease so I could try another route, but it has only gotten worse. Ethan exchanged a glance with Kira. The vibrations in the walls had grown stronger since they entered this sector. The storm was pressing harder against the upper levels, and time was running short. We need to reach the inner shelter, Ethan said. But we have to navigate the lower tunnels to get close enough. Kira activated a small display from her wrist device, projecting a faint map onto the curved wall beside them. The lines of the outpost flickered with patches of yellow, marking unstable areas. This route, she said, pointing to a diagonal tunnel leading toward the central ring, offers structural reinforcement along most of its length. It is longer, but safer than crossing the upper walkways. Noah studied the projection and nodded. I know that tunnel. It connects to the coolant distribution hub. Should be stable enough. Ethan's visor dimmed slightly as he checked his suit's energy levels. My power reserves are getting low, he admitted. I can still move, but the assisted functions might weaken. Kira observed him quietly, noting the subtle strain in his posture. Conserve your power whenever possible, she said. I will manage the scans. Noah adjusted the strap on his power cell. I can help with lighting. The cell has enough charge left for a few hours. Ethan gave him an appreciative look. Good. Then we moved together. They left the maintenance hub, stepping into the next tunnel with careful coordination. Noah's light cast a wide, warm beam, contrasting with the cool, focused glow from Kira's wrist. The mix of illumination revealed every detail along the path. The curved metal walls, the soft dust rising under their boots, the faint shimmer of coolant pipes humming with low energy. As they continued, the tunnel narrowed and the air cooled noticeably. A gentle mist hovered near the floor, produced by condensation along the coolant lines. Noah paused to examine a pressure gauge mounted into the wall. Levels are steady, he said. That means the central hub should still be intact. Kira touched the gauge lightly, sensing the subtle vibration beneath the metal. The stability is consistent. The reinforced walls are absorbing the majority of the storm's force. Ethan listened to the distant rumble overhead, less intense than before, but still present. It feels quieter down here, he said. Almost like the storm is far away. That is the design, Kira replied. These lower sections protect essential infrastructure. The tunnel ahead widened into a long, straight corridor where their footsteps carried a muted echo. Kira raised her hand suddenly, her gaze shifting downward. Look, she said softly. Ethan leaned in, seeing what she pointed to. On the floor, barely visible under the thin mist, was a small, neatly placed trail of coolant droplets. The pattern was intentional, spaced evenly, like markers. Noah blinked in surprise. I did not make those. Kira studied the droplets closely. These were placed recently, she said. Someone ahead is marking the path. Ethan felt a slow realization settle in his chest. Another survivor, he murmured. Kira straightened, her calm voice carrying a quiet certainty. We are not the only ones who refuse to give up. Together, guided by the faint trail glistening under their lights, they continued deeper into the outpost, unaware of what waited for them beyond the next bend. The passage curved gently as Ethan, Kira, and Noah followed the faint trail of droplets deeper into the quiet lower levels. The air cooled noticeably, brushing against Ethan's visor with a smooth, steady current that carried the scent of metal and filtered coolant. The storm above murmured through the structure like distant thunder rolling across a hidden sky. Each step forward tightened the sense of expectation hanging in the air. Kira moved ahead with controlled precision, her posture alert but calm. Her wrist light cast long beams across the walls, catching the glimmer of moisture clinging to the metal surface. The droplets are smaller now, she observed softly. She placed them more frequently. She was closer to exhaustion. Noah swallowed lightly. Lena is smart. If she kept marking the trail, even when she was tired, she must have believed someone would follow. Ethan nodded. She made it this far. That alone tells us she is resilient. The tunnel widened unexpectedly into a circular room, its domed ceiling lit by a ring of dim emergency lights. The soft glow reflected off curved coolant conduits that ran across the upper walls like veins of blue fire. At the center of the room stood a large vertical pipe with a control terminal attached at chest height. Kira approached it, sweeping a hand across the dustless surface. She activated this terminal, Kira said. Recently. Ethan leaned in. To check system stability? Kira nodded. And to confirm she was heading in the correct direction. Noah did not wait for further explanation. He pointed toward the far side of the chamber where a narrow passageway branched off at a slight downward angle. There, he said. More droplets. Ethan saw them glimmering faintly under their lights, like a trail of small stars edged along the floor. They stepped into the new passage, moving with quiet anticipation. The walls here were slightly curved inward, and the lights flickered with a soft rhythm as the auxiliary power struggled under the storm's strain. The droplets led them to a long walkway with grated flooring suspended above a coolant reservoir. The air felt colder, rising in small waves from the reservoirs below. Kira paused halfway across the walkway. Her wrist light caught something on the left wall. Ethan turned to look. A name had been written into the condensation with a fingertip. Lena. Noah exhaled shakily. She is letting us know she is alive. Ethan touched the condensation lightly, careful not to distort the letters. She wanted to make sure we did not lose the trail. Kira looked ahead, her golden eyes narrowing slightly. The walkway shifts downward into the coolant distribution hub. If she reached it, she may have taken shelter in the central monitoring alcove. They moved forward, and as they approached the end of the walkway, Ethan noticed something resting atop a grated platform. A small toolkit. The lid had been left partially open, revealing neatly arranged instruments inside. Kira inspected the handle. Warm, she said quietly. She was here only moments ago. Noah looked around quickly. Lena. His voice echoed softly through the chamber. At first there was no answer. Then, from the small alcove above the central conduit, came a faint sound, something between a breath and a cautious shift. Kira lifted her wrist light toward the alcove. A silhouette retreated slightly, then leaned forward just enough for them to see a pair of tired eyes reflecting the glow. Ethan felt relief wash through him, steady and real. Lena Rowan, he said gently. We are here to get you out. Lena blinked slowly as if making sure they were truly there and not imagined. I knew someone would come, she whispered. But I did not expect anyone to reach this deep. Noah stepped forward, his voice warm. You left a good trail. Lena allowed a small, tired smile. I thought if I kept marking the path, someone might find me. Kira studied her quietly, then spoke with soft certainty. You chose hope, and that is why we are here. Ethan glanced upward as a soft tremor rippled through the chamber. The storm's pressure was shifting again. They had found Lena, but the vibrations in the walls reminded him that the hardest part was still ahead. They had to find a way out before the outpost above them could shift again. Lena looked past them toward the walkway. There is something you need to know, she said softly. The structure is changing. We may not be alone down here. Ethan felt the air still around them as her words settled like a quiet alarm. The droplets on the floor glimmered under their lights, reflecting the path they had taken and the uncertainty of the path still ahead. Ethan held Lena's gaze as her words settled through the chamber. The gentle pulse of coolant lines added a soft undercurrent, but beneath that rhythm he detected something else, a shift in the structure that felt almost like the outpost exhaling under pressure. Kira stepped closer to Lena, her expression steady and reassuring. Tell us what you sensed, she said softly. Lena glanced toward the shadowed upper conduits. When the storm surged earlier, the lower levels redirected power. I felt the resonance change. It means the outpost is preparing for a containment cycle. Noah's eyes widened. Containment? That would seal the inner shelter. Ethan's visor dimmed as he processed that. How long do we have? Lena shook her head gently. It is not exact. Maybe minutes. Maybe a little more. But once the cycle starts, access to the shelter closes automatically. Kira looked to Ethan with calm certainty. Then we must move now. They helped Lena down from the alcove, her steps steady but slow from exhaustion. Ethan kept close, adjusting his pace to hers. Noah scanned the path ahead with his portable light, ensuring they stayed aligned with the coolant lines that indicated structural strength. As they left the chamber, a soft tremor rolled through the walkway, rippling beneath their feet like a distant wave. Ethan steadied Lena with a hand on her arm. Easy, he murmured. We have you. Kira paused briefly, her golden eyes tracking vibrations through the walls. The cycle is beginning. We must reach the central intersection before the barriers deploy. They moved quickly but carefully through the curved passage, following the droplets Lena had placed earlier. The familiar glimmer gave Ethan an odd sense of comfort, as though the trail itself assured them they were on the right path. As they approached the main corridor, a low chime echoed throughout the walls, gentle yet unmistakable. Lena inhaled softly. That is the first warning. The system is activating. Noah turned to her. How far is the intersection? Just ahead, she said. Beyond the coolant reservoir hall. They entered the spacious hall, where the cool fog hovered above the grated flooring. Thin beams of light from their equipment created gentle arcs across the mist. The droplets ended here, replaced by a clean, dry walkway that led directly to a brightly lit corridor. Kira paused at the threshold. This section is stable, she said. The shelter access lies at the end. Ethan gave Lena an encouraging nod. Almost there. They crossed the hall quickly. As they neared the corridor, a second chime resonated through the walls, deeper and more urgent. Lena's breath caught. The cycle is accelerating. Kira stepped forward. Then we run. Her voice, though calm, carried an unmistakable edge of determination. They moved as one, picking up their pace as the corridor lights shifted from white to amber. Ethan felt the floor vibrate in short pulses, each one stronger than the last, a countdown he had no intention of allowing to reach zero. The shelter door came into view, a reinforced entryway framed by emergency lights. It was still open, though the mechanism above it hummed steadily, preparing to close. Lena quickened her steps, Noah supporting her on one side, while Ethan stayed at the other. Kira reached the doorway first, scanning the panel. The sequence has started, she warned. The door motor engaged with a soft tone. Ethan, Lena, and Noah crossed the threshold just as the frame tightened. Ethan heard the subtle shift of metal as the door began to slide inward. Kira followed last, her steps quick but composed. The door closed behind her with a firm, quiet seal. Inside the shelter, the air felt still and warm, illuminated by soft overhead lights and lined with reinforced seating along the walls. Noah exhaled in relief. Lena leaned against the wall with a grateful smile. We made it, she whispered. Ethan nodded, adjusting his visor as the adrenaline ebbed. "Because you never stopped leaving a trail," he said. Kira stepped beside him, her eyes tracing the sealed door. "Because we followed it together." In the quiet that followed, Ethan looked at Kira, recalling the silhouette burned into the wall far above them. She had shielded him without hesitation, and now, together, they had shielded someone else. The storm continued to rumble outside, but inside the shelter, a calm certainty settled over the group. Hope, once carried by a faint trail of droplets, now filled the warm, steady air around them.